Talk to me about your imagination as a kid.
At that time, I always saw the people that were into real estate did very well. And to acquire wealth, real estate was the right way to go.
In today's video, we're going to be looking at what happens when gambling goes horribly wrong and take a deep dive into the story of Victor Jonai and his ultimate gambling scam. So if you're interested in learning about shocking tales involving gambling away huge sums of money, lies, deceit, and let's face it, dumb ways to scam the lottery, then this is the video for you.
When I turned 18, I got my real estate license and got into the residential world for a few years and got a chance to understand the business and how it works. And from there, just kind of grew into it slowly.
Let me ask you.
Many people are easily seduced by the thrill of gambling. And while some become entrapped by the hungry beast due to their obsession with the idea of potential reward, it becomes more than just about financial gain and more about experiencing the highs and lows, leading to an uncontrollable urge to keep gambling, despite the toll it may be taking on the individual. It goes without saying that, either way, a gambling addiction can have a severe, lasting negative impact on the gambler's life and reaches out to affect those around them as well. And it's not only about losing money. Self-esteem, relationships, and health can all be harmed in the process, leading some people to suffer so greatly that they end up doing the worst things imaginable to themselves or to the people around them. This story is one of the worst when it comes to financial consequences and shines a light on how far someone will go when they are in the throes of addiction. Detroit, Michigan, 2015. Victor Jonai was a smart financier and real estate broker with over 20 years in the business, described as a staple in the Metro Detroit real estate market. He had founded a successful real estate firm called Imperium Group, he had a loving family, and he was doing pretty well for himself. Fast forward to June 2016. Jonai had a brilliant business idea, and so he created a new title company before putting the next stage of his plan into action. Next, Jonai was on the hunt for investors, and so he advertised really lucrative real estate deals that he apparently had access to that would lure in the right type of backer. After assuring the investors that their money would be going straight into these incredible real estate deals, he convinced them to write out checks or directly wire money into a bank account connected to his company. He explained that he would use their money to buy, develop, and resell real estate at a profit. However, he never actually promised a specific rate of return. Little did they know what Jonai was actually doing with their money. Oh, he was investing their money all right. But into real estate? Think again. His brilliant idea wasn't so brilliant after all. Rather criminal, and spoiler alert, it didn't end well. As it turns out, Jonai was a compulsive gambler and had concocted a scheme to trick people into pouring money into these fake investment opportunities. This gave him easy access to other people's money, allowing him to fuel his addiction. Instead of plowing that money into the alleged deals as he had promised, he invested it in the Michigan lottery. Oh, and with any money that happened to be left over, it went on other personal expenses. But all is not lost, at least according to Jonai. He was convinced that he had figured out a way to win big on daily 3 and 4 lottery games. So he was playing big and spending, well, massive. And for that, he obviously needed a lot of money to make his plan work. And how much did Jonai raise for this scheme of his? Around a staggering $26 million, although the precise amount he obtained from his victims fluctuates. Things quickly escalated for the gambler-turned-fraudster, getting to the point where Victor was gambling away more than an astonishing $1 million per week on daily 3 and 4 lottery games, buying tickets in bulk. Then things started to go south for the big spender, and less than a year later, in 2017, it started to become apparent that his plan wasn't working because he had in fact lost more money than he had won. But that didn't faze Jonai. It just meant that he had to come up with another plan to make more money. So he turned his enterprise into a pyramid scheme to see how long that would last. But to make this new plan work, he would need more investors. And that wasn't going to be difficult for the expert trickster. All he had to do was lie about how much money he was making on the fake real estate deals in great detail, and hey presto, more investors, more money. Obviously, by this point, Jonai had no profits, so to avoid detection, he used the money from new investors to pay off the old ones. You'd think at this point he would have admitted defeat and given up on his delusions of winning big on the lottery, right? Wrong. He just continued on gambling away as much money as he could until the inevitable finally happened. In August of 2019, his coffers had again run dry. There was no money left. So everything unraveled, and it was the end of the line for Victor Jonai and his scam. Funnily enough, running out of money was the only reason everything crumbled. You might wonder, how was he caught? But the surprising truth is that he turned himself into government agents. The FBI ended up conducting the investigation, but they didn't actually know anything about the scam until Jonai confessed, according to reports. One of the most alarming parts of this story is that it wasn't like nobody was aware of his gambling problem. The fact that he was still allowed to continue gambling even though the state of Michigan were well aware of Jonai and his addiction is troubling, as it meant that he could just continue undisturbed on his relentless quest to hit the big time. So this whole gambling addiction story and its subsequent victims could have been avoided had the authorities actually made some sort of effort to help Jonai, or made some attempts to curb the problem, according to Jonai's lawyer. Nevertheless, he was arrested and was facing up to 20 years in prison until, in 2020, the scammer was nowhere to be found and hadn't been heard of since August of that year. Victor Jonai was missing. A lawsuit had also brought to light that in addition to all of the money he stole, Victor Jonai had also received cars, jewelry, and vacations from lottery retailers, leading the lawsuit to describe these retailers as major, willing, and helpful beneficiaries of his scheme. One complaint even states that Jonai was spending that much that some stores had ticket machines dedicated solely to him. But he eventually resurfaced and showed his face at federal court in Detroit, where in September of 2021, Jonai was sentenced after pleading guilty to 1 count of wire fraud, and he took a plea deal. The court records state that he had developed his gambling habit quite a while before he set up his scam. His belief that he had discovered this surefire way to win these mammoth lottery jackpots had fueled his addiction, and that's when he realized he would need to invest hefty sums of money to pull it off and increase the frequency at which he was playing. Even though he did both, it didn't make a difference as his losses began to add up to the point where he couldn't afford to lose any more money. And so he hatched his, what he thought was cunning, plan. The only reason he had set up this fake title company, Title Plus Services, was to make the whole thing seem legitimate and to completely pull the wool over his victims' eyes. The fact that he had turned himself in, confessed and pled guilty as early as possible put him in good stead when it came to his sentencing. And the sentence for this scam artist, who defrauded investors out of well over $19 million? 53 months in prison, so just over 4 years. And he was also ordered to pay tens of millions of dollars in restitution to his victims. In court, Jonai's defense attorney, Steve Fisherman, stated that Jonai had taken full responsibility for the crime, as well as pointing out his client's gambling problem. In a statement, Fisherman said, "Those casinos don't care. The Lottery Commission doesn't care. If you want to gamble away every penny you have and that you can steal, you can do it. I think this is a man who really, truly accepts responsibility for his conduct." He certainly has a point. Problem gamblers are worth a lot to these companies and organizations, and technically, in the eyes of the American courts, they don't actually have any duty of care or responsibility to compulsive gamblers, which is a controversial issue. However, that doesn't take away from the reality that his actions caused a lot of harm to many victims. The federal prosecutor on the case stated, "I cannot argue with the fact that Mr. Jonai was in the throes of a serious gambling addiction, but it does not obfuscate from the fact that this defendant completed a fairly sophisticated fraud. At the time of writing, Victor Jonai's company Imperium LLC is defunct, and he's serving his sentence behind bars. When he's released, he'll be forced to serve a 3-year term of supervised release, and he'll also have to enter drug, alcohol, and mental health programs. Despite agreeing to a forfeit of around $19 million, it's going to be extremely difficult for the victims to actually recover their money, as Victor Jonai is now broke, which has also caused great distress to his family. In light of this case, the Michigan Lottery finally took action and in 2018 made the unprecedented decision of limiting lottery machines to $5,000 in play per day. Jonai is reported to be relieved that his ordeal is over and is looking forward to serving his time and returning to polite society, hoping to return to the real estate business when he gets out. Ultimately, the actions of Victor Jonai had many victims and caused a lot of distress to these individuals and their families. But on the other hand, he was also a victim of a serious gambling problem, and this whole situation could have been avoided if he had been given the help he clearly needed by the authorities, who were already aware of the situation and had the power to do something. But what do you think? Do you think Jonai was a cold-hearted con man? Or was he a guy who made a mistake when he got caught up in a harmful addiction? We'll let you make your own mind up on this one. If anything, let this story be a reminder that gambling can quickly become an addiction and, allowed to run rampant, could leave you and your family facing the worst possible scenarios. So that's going to do it for today. If you've enjoyed yourself, be sure to watch another one of our videos, and we'll see you next time.